And so, yeah, Zenani, welcome. Thanks again for being here.
No problem, Dominique. Again, hey everyone. I'm excited that you all are on the call. I hope that I don't bore you all because I know I've been in lectures all morning. So I just want to make sure this is engaging and you all really take something from the conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Zenani.
No
Uh,
problem.
all right. So tell us, what did your journey towards law school look like before PLSI?
Yeah, so I graduated undergrad in 2020. So I was a pandemic undergraduate grad, I guess you can say. And I was applying to schools and I actually didn't get accepted to any that round. And I'm very transparent and vulnerable in my law school journey. And so instead, since it was kind of difficult for like us as a group to just find jobs, I was waiting to hear back from a few companies. So I applied to grad school. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to school somehow, some way. And it just so happened that I started my graduate program at FSU online. And then I got a few callbacks from some other jobs that ended up hiring during the pandemic. And so from there, I was working on my master's while working full time. And I mentioned that because I saw a question regarding like non-traditional students in CLEO. I'm currently a non-traditional law student. And so I started studying again. And to be very frank, I took the LSAT about 3 times. Even on the third try, I still didn't get my goal score. But during that time, I met a young woman. Her name is Charlene Stanberry, and she's also an attorney right now. She went through CLEO, and she told me like, "Hey, I'm not sure like if you've heard of this program before, but I went through CLEO. It really helped me not only prepare for law school, but get accepted into law school." And from there, I started researching CLEO. So when I was doing my next round of applications to apply for law school, which I decided to start the application process probably like a year after I graduated with my master's, I then went and applied for CLEO as well. So I think like this past cycle, I applied to like 15 plus schools and I just really wanted to go to law school so bad. And that cost a lot of money, guys. So, but hey, everybody's different. So I applied for those 15 schools. I applied for CLEO and I was accepted into one of the partner law schools before hearing back from CLEO, I believe. But once CLEO accepted me, then the partner law school was like, oh, okay, well, that's one of our partner law schools. And they actually offered me like a scholarship to attend. And then that's pretty much my journey prior to PLSI. So it took about 4 years, 15 plus schools applied for, but we finally made it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And thank
No
you also
problem.
for giving a little bit of insight to the non-traditional aspect of your journey as well. Um, how did PLSI impact your law school preparation?
So during PLSI, it was actually like at first it felt like drinking from a fire hose, but it wasn't. It was simply just preparing us for our first like year of law school. As Dominique said during my introduction, I'm a 1L. So I was very scared to start my law school journey, especially because I didn't feel confident going in because I know how difficult it was for me to even get accepted. So when it came to PLSI's impact on my program, I went as hard as I could. I took PLSI very serious, and that was actually one of the things I wanted to share with you all at the end. You get what you put in. And so when it came to our pre-reading, I made sure to read as many cases as I could, be very prepared for class. We also had some like tips that they gave us, like on how to outline going in. We also yeah, so before classes, that's what happened. They gave us pre-reading, and I remember I was at a Starbucks like Saturday and Sunday trying to read everything because my house was just not quiet to focus. And so moving forward, um we did case briefing and then we actually had PLSI. I'm sorry, y'all. It's just so much I want to say, and I'm trying to be concise. So after the classes started, we were virtual for the first 2 weeks. And then during that time, we still had cold calls, when your teacher calls on you asking you about the case. And then we also had homework assignments in between that. But then a group of us that selected to go in person, we were able to start school in person, and that's where the hybrid option came in. And that's where we got a little bit more into the weeds about our law school preparation. We began doing like your eye racking, which is the way in which you write in law school. It's like you spot the issue, you have your rules, your analysis, your conclusion. Then they started working with us a little bit more on our case briefs. And then the first week we had legal writing that we were taking, criminal law, as well as torts. So you were learning 3 different law subjects in that time period. And we had quizzes, we had tests, and we also had nightly reading. Then that next week, the next few weeks, then we moved into con law. We had civil procedures. So we were actually getting a sneak peek into all of our first year courses. And what that really helped prepare me because one, y'all, I'm in my second semester of my first year. Okay. I did not have as much of a learning curve as my peers because when I talked to you all about going to class from about 8 to 5, then going home doing your homework, meeting with the TAs in the CLEO program, that's exactly what your day is going to be like in law school. And it might be a little bit more gaps here, but typically in your first year, you don't get to choose your courses. So CLEO kind of gave us that sneak peek of the importance of managing our time and just what will be required of us when we start law school. So I got used to the amount of reading. I think actually I probably had a little bit more pre-reading and reading preparation than I actually got like in my first year kind of classes. So that's good because you're going to be expecting like boom 200, 300 pages to read, but when in law school it's more like 75 to maybe 150 pages, which you can just break up. So that really helped prepare us so that when we got in we weren't as like how am I going to get all this done? We're like, oh, I already did this. Like I went through CLEO, like we're good. And then when the teachers had us like trying to figure out how to do our legal writing essays, like I'm relaxing. I'm like, okay, I already know how to do this. So I'm turning in assignments. I'm actually having a little bit more like cushion room as I'm starting my first semester. When it came to the cold calls, wasn't worried because we actually did that in CLEO. Like in fact, when we would actually be a cold call is when so before you go to school, you have to read your cases that your teacher assigns, and then you're expected to go to class knowing that case and being able to present on it. But they call it a cold call because nobody knows who they're going to call. Most times it's just random. So that's what I mean by cold call. We were already being cold called in CLEO, so you're not as nervous to speak anymore. You understand what that takes. Um, and then even with the weekend assignments that Dominique spoke about earlier, yes, you're going to have homework on the weekends in law school, especially your first year. Just to be transparent, my first semester, I actually did law school like every day. Unfortunately, in order for me to keep up with the material, I was reading or doing practice questions 7 days a week. Um, you can, carve in those breaks, but I understood what my learning style was to be successful in law school because I went through CLEO. And so that's how CLEO prepared me for my preparation. I could honestly go on and on and on. And it's also a question on here about is there ever a moment in law school that I think about CLEO where I'm like, I'm so glad I went to CLEO every day. There is not a time, y'all, that I don't say, oh, CLEO. Like I am the biggest CLEO ambassador because like I said, you get what you put in. And because I was actually trying to like read all the cases and really prepare so that I could engage in class, really take the exam preparation serious. By the time law school started, I felt like I had already went through my first semester of law school. And in fact, one of our bar prep faculty members, actually all of my teachers know I went through CLEO because I like to brag about it. But one of my bar exam teachers, she said, Zenani, that's going to set you apart from your peers. And she was right. I ended up ranking like in the top 10% of my law school class. And and that's really big, y'all, because law school is hard. Like the curve is interesting. But because of CLEO, I'm telling you all, it's worth the investment. I saw some of you all talking about like the cost. Look, it's an investment. Law school as a whole is expensive, but when you understand your why and the reason you want to go to law school, you want to do everything you can to go and prepare. Another thing that a lot of my peers and I battle with is this idea of imposter syndrome. So CLEO helps you get rid of that. Like this idea, like, am I meant to be here? Do I have what it takes? Am I smart enough? Yes, because if you can get through CLEO, you can get through anything. Because one of my teachers, he actually used to be the executive director of CLEO. And I was telling him how like I felt so well prepared because of everything we went through at CLEO, as far as the homework, as far as balancing personal and professional life, like everything like that. And he said it was meant to do that to you because it's like a boot camp. And so when CLEO tells you it's going to make you a more competitive law student, it is, because you will not have to experience that learning curve on top of trying to figure out how do you study, how do I get through all this reading. It's like you're ready and you're ready to go on.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that context.
No
Uh,
problem. Sorry it was long, but y'all, it's a great
no,
program.
I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and really, again, giving that student perspective. Is there anything else that you want to share about your time in PLSI?
Yes, I also want to add that when Dominique was speaking earlier about those extracurricular activities, those were really great. So I believe that PLSI is held in different places. So I'm not sure if it'll be in Minnesota this year, but from my experience, we were able to visit the George Floyd Memorial. That was like about 25 minutes away from the law school we were studying. And then we also were able to go to Fort Snelling, where you'll learn about the Dred Scott case. And so we were able to see actual slave headquarters. And those two things were important because in law school, your teachers will always tell you that these are real people with real problems. The cases that you're learning actually happen in real life. And sometimes that's hard for us to put our head around. But law school to me is both the pen and the sword. Growing up, I used to always hear the pen is mightier than the sword, but law school really serves as both. And so being able to do those weekend excursions where we're able to visit the memorials and visit Fort Snelling and actually see the very places that we were going to be reading about, or even what we were inspired, because some people would like to do civil rights work, right? Some people would like to use their law degree to make sure what happened never happens again in this country, right? That is going to humanize and also serve as your motivation to continue to law school. Not only that, I still talk to my PLSI cohort. So we have like a group chat for our CLEO family. I call it CLEO family. And like my roommates I was paired with, we were able to stay in dorms. So it was like three of us to a room. Well, we had our own room, but it was a dorm. And I still talk to Aviana and Lauren. Shout out to them. Like in fact, one of us like got in the group chat the other day and was like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time waking up on time. Can y'all please call me and make sure I'm up?" And we're like, "Yeah, like we'll call you, make sure you're up." We check in on each other, because the beautiful thing about law school is that you build a bond, but the even more beautiful thing about CLEO is you build a bond, but it's with a more closer knit group. And yes, you have rankings, and yes, you all are trying to, do as well as you can. The pressure to be top 10% and everything, it's like kind of different. So you're really able to get to know your CLEO institute members in a more like even personal way. Like 6 weeks seems like a short amount of time. And to some it is, but we were able to build lifetime friendships. And that's not the first time I'm saying that. I've said it multiple times, but also my mentor who even told me about CLEO, she still talks to her CLEO, her CLEO family. And so I personally love CLEO. I really encourage you all to do it, and no, they did not pay me to say any of this. I honestly am telling you guys, it is worth the investment. I just wanted to encourage you all in your law school process as well, because like I think I applied to 15 schools in the cycle it took for me to get accepted this time, but I think I applied the first time to like 5 schools. So I tell people like it took like 18 no's to get 2 yeses, and then the extra one came from CLEO. And I'm grateful for that, because law school, they tell you a lot of horror stories, but to me, as long as you continue to persevere and you take the initiative and you're eager to learn and you do programs like CLEO, you will be just fine. Just by you being on this call, I already know you all will be able to succeed.